Hello, everybody. It's Jon Cornation. I did my instant reaction and the UCLA debacle. And in that reaction, I said that we really needed to fire our beloved offensive coordinator, Marcus Satterfield. And, the instant right reaction videos are meant to be not edited most of the time. They're raw. They're just feelings I have directly after a plane. I don't usually take any notes or anything when I do those. And I thought I'd respond. There were a lot of comments on that video, and I thank you for the support and the comments. One of them caught my eye from Steve Malacaro, 891. And he says, is it Satterfield? Is it the players, or is it a combo of both? How the hell do you know? If they replace him, Satterfield, will that change anything? I keep hearing we're doing the same thing and expecting different outcomes. Just a thought, if they fire him and get someone new, is that not the same thing? We've changed coaches and staff 6 times since 98, and we keep getting the same results. In my humble opinion, we just need to chill out and let rule rule. Well, I think the thing in the last part of that sentence, let rule rule, I honestly think Matt Rule knows he has a problem, but he's probably not going to make a change until the end of the season. But I thought that because I'm a genius, I'm a guy who talks a lot on the internet, that, same thing. I thought that I would give my point, or actually give some real facts and give more of my opinion about why I think Marcus Satterfield is a problem and needs to go. And I'm going to approach this from a business standpoint. I've been an IT consultant my whole life. I've worked for companies as small as like 5 people in a small business and all the way up to Zurich Insurance or Tetra Pak, a company you probably never heard of, but they're in your everyday life. If you have a juice box, turn it over, and you're probably going to see a triangle and a Tetra Pak logo. And Tetra Pak is a massive multinational corporation that's privately owned, which is why you never hear about them. All of those things have one thing in common. They're businesses, and they have hierarchies, just like Nebraska's coaching staff and just like Nebraska's football team. And we seem to have the attitude that there's something maybe magical or different about having a good football team than there is anything else. And I really don't think there is. I think you have the same challenges that you do in businesses, which is hiring good managers or hiring good vice presidents or people that are going to oversee other people. And then put those, honestly, I think the jobs of like a vice president, number one is to make sure that his division or whatever he's in charge of is successful. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. I think that if those people in those positions are not successful, then they need to not be there anymore. Number one, I think that a vice president or a manager, their responsibility is to communicate their vision to their employees. In other words, make sure that they understand what their tasks are. Make sure they understand what they're doing, what they're responsible for, and what makes them successful. If you can't do that, that's your fault as a manager. I'm not getting to Satterfield yet. I'm just telling you blank. This is what people in leadership positions should be doing. You should put your employees in a position to be successful. Steve, our commenter, says, is it the players or is it Satterfield or is it a combo of both? I would say that, let's say that you had a manager of maybe a fast food restaurant, something I've never really worked in and never worked at. Go in and watch those people sometimes when there's a rush on. I think it's amazing how well they actually function most of the time. Then they have to deal with some customer that explodes because they didn't get ketchup or something silly. But, that manager has to have all those people ready to do all that stuff. And that manager, I don't want to, insult fast food people, but they're normally, not the cream of the crop of employees who are going to go out and discover wormholes that are going to get us across the universe. They do a job I could never do. If you think about that guy, let's put yourself in that guy's position. If he comes back to his supervisor, manager of a fast food restaurant, and says, I need better employees, I'm sure that the guy above him is going to look at him and say, finding better employees is always a goal that we're trying to search for. We're trying to always have the best employees we can. That's true for typically any business. But your goals in your fast food restaurant are to meet this minimum standard. And when you turn to look at that from Nebraska's football program right now, we're not asking Marcus Satterfield or Matt Rule, honestly, to become Ohio State or Oregon or get us to the college football playoff right now. Right now. We're asking him at a minimum, these guys at a minimum, to get to a bowl game. That's it. That's a pretty low bar. That's an incredibly low standard for what we're asking for right now. If your goal for success this year is to get to a bowl game and you can't do it, that's kind of a big red flag for you're not successful. Doesn't matter if your players, you're responsible for making sure that they're doing their jobs and able to execute their jobs. And like I said earlier, putting them in a position to be successful. Let's take a quick look at Marcus Satterfield's performance this year so far. So Nebraska's scoring offense, which is the big one I always talk about, is 100th out of, I don't know, about 130 FBS teams. So pretty damn close to the bottom. The passing offense is 67th, which is, about in the middle. Rushing offense, 104th at 124.89 yards per game, so that's pretty crappy. Total offense is 99th, really way down the list in terms of any success. Third down conversions, hey, we're not too bad at that. You might have thought that was terrible, but we're actually 42nd, which is, if you set the minimum standard to get to a bowl game, that's probably right in there. That's a margin of success. Good job. You're converting over half of your third down conversions. Good thing. Good job, Marcus. Long scrimmage plays of 10 plus yards, 64th. These are explosive plays. An explosive play is a run play of over 10 yards and a pass play of over 20. So we're just saying 10 plus yards, we're 64th in that. Not very good. Now comes the last one, the one that really sticks out a lot, and that is red zone conversions. And I want you to think about what that is right now. Just give you a moment and guess where we are nationally in that category. And if you guessed at the bottom, well, you're wrong. We're just slightly above that. We're at 127th by percentage. In other words, the percentage of times we get in the red zone and score, we're 127th in the nation at that statistic. And, congratulations if you did guess 127th. You win, sadness, probably some regret. But if you look at all those performance metrics, they're pretty crappy. They're crappy across the board. Nebraska's offense is not good at all. And you can blame players for that. But ultimately, as I've made the point, it's kind of up to the manager or the supervisor, the guy that's in charge, to put those people in the position to be successful. Have we done that? It's pretty clear, I think, that we don't. The one question I would ask of Marcus Satterfield, if I could, and I would really like to see somebody in Nebraska's media ask this question, is what do we do well on offense? What do we do well? Anything? Do we run the ball well? Do we throw the ball well? I don't think we do anything, those things well. And here's the key to that. Name 3 bread and butter plays. In other words, 3 plays that Nebraska, just 3. Not like even in situations like the red zone, but 3 bread and butter plays that we're going to run if, for example, we need 2 yards, or we need to gain 5 yards, or we need to run the clock, or we need to score in the red zone. Can you name 3 bread and butter plays that Nebraska can run that gain us yardage when we need to gain yards? And I don't think anybody can do that, because I don't think there are any. I don't even know if you can name one that's consistent. The other question you'd have to look at with regards to Marcus Satterfield's performance, the Nebraska offense performance, is progress being made? And are we better as the season has gone along? Because I think other teams around us have gotten better. Some of them have regressed. USC looks like they're regressing pretty badly, and maybe that's good news for a chance at a win. Yay. But is progress being made? And I think the answer to that is no. Progress is not being made. I think that's pretty clear. Dylan Raiola, who's one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the nation, people are on him for not playing well. And he's not getting better. And whose fault is that? I would say that's not Dylan Royale's fault. That's the fault of the people who are trying to help him get better. They're trying to, are they communicating their vision? Are they putting him in a position to be successful? And I think the answer to those questions is no, they're not. Now, one of the examples of this is the UCLA confusion. UCLA, if you watch that game, God help you, I'm sorry. But if you watch the game, you saw UCLA's defense do a lot of shifting before they actually lined up to start the play. They'd stand up, they'd move around. They literally confused the hell out of our quarterback. And what did we do about that? Well, we went 3-and-out to start the game and it ran, gained 2 yards in the first quarter. And it's clear that there was no communication of vision for our young quarterback that said, by the way, if they do this, here's our bread and butter plays that we don't have that we're going to run in that situation that we know will gain yardage. In other words, we're going to take the confusion they're giving us and we're going to take back that advantage by knowing what we do well, like running mesh routes. What? We don't see a mesh route anywhere? I don't recall any. 2-minute offense is another big thing, I think, for me, that when you watch the games, or maybe when you're behind a team and your defense starts playing well and starts shutting them down and you need to make up points in a hurry. Do you have a 2-minute offense? Do you actually practice a 2-minute offense in practice? Because it doesn't look like it, because you look at this offense and they go out on the field and you can see their confusion because they're waiting for the next play. And I would think that an offensive coordinator would have had plays lined up and ready to go. In other words, the coach, who is responsible for making the offense successful, would know exactly what he's going to do to move the ball down the field. And he would have communicated that to his players ahead of time before they were put in that situation, so there would be no confusion. There would be no waiting. There would be no need to call timeouts and waste them when you can't afford to do that. And there would be no reason for you to be wasting clock waiting for a guy who's getting paid unbelievable crap tons of money because he already knows what he's doing ahead of time, because he had a plan. And I think all of those things are missing. All of this stuff is abject failure across the board by our offensive coordinator. You could throw some other guys in there too. You could throw maybe the quarterback's coach. I don't know. You could throw the wide receivers coach, because God help us, our wide receivers couldn't block on the perimeter at the beginning of the season, and they still don't now. And that's not progress. You could throw the offensive line coach in there. You could do all those things. But right now, I'm just talking about Marcus Satterfield because he's kind of the guy at the head of this, in charge of a really crappy offense. Now, doing the same thing and expecting different results, I can imagine that in business, managers are fired every day of the week across the nation because they're not successful. So if you were running a business, a fast food franchise, let's say, and you had a guy running that wasn't good at it, would you just keep him and not fire him? No, you'd fire him and you go find somebody else. And you keep doing that same thing over and over until you found someone who could actually do the job well. And it wouldn't really matter to you how many times you had to do that. Now, it may be a problem with you, obviously, and that you're not hiring quality employees, but that's a different subject and a different video. I'm sure I'm going to get comments on that. But the idea that you're doing the same thing over and over, yeah, you pretty much, that's how it works. I realize it's frustrating for us as fans to watch this and not be successful, but we're dealing with this situation right here, right now. We're not dealing with the situation of the last 20 years. And right here, right now, I think we have an offensive coordinator that's failing miserably, and he needs to be not in charge of the offense anymore. And that is my case for firing Marcus Satterfield. I don't take any great joy in it. I wish that he was successful and that our offense was actually good and we were scoring points and having fun and getting victories. But that is not the case right now. We have 3 games to win a bowl game, to win one more to get to a bowl game. If we can't do that, we're going to go into this offseason with, quite frankly, a lot of despair. If you're going to have, Matt Rule says this stuff about trust the process. Same thing Bo Pelini said years ago. I hate to bring up Bo Pelini, and I really don't want comments about Pelini. That's under the bridge. It doesn't matter anymore. We're dealing with this situation now. But trusting the process, and they both say this to fans, trusting the process means that you have to have faith in where this stuff is going. Because you expect us as Nebraska fans to outlay money and time into this program. You expect tickets to be purchased. You expect people to watch. You expect NIL money. For some reason, their coaches are getting paid millions, but fans are still asked to cough up some money for the offensive line, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but it seems a little idiotic when you don't have that vision maybe that you're communicating, or you expect endless faith from people when you're not making progress. And that's the problem with saying trust the process. And I think a red flag for this is a red flag to watch, not necessarily one that is. I mentioned that I was an IT consultant. I've done a lot of projects of different types over my lifetime. And you certainly have project plans when you're doing them. And you might take that project plan and cookie cutter it between clients. But you have to recognize if you're going to be successful in your job, whatever it is, that you might have to take your cookie cutter plan and make adjustments to it as you're going to fit the situation you're in at the time. And that adjustment for Matt Rule right now is getting rid of his offensive coordinator. I know that he probably thinks, well, I shouldn't do that before the end of the season because, well, that would be disruptive. If that's the change that needs to be made at the end of the season, you know it now. And I don't see how you can't know that. Then why wouldn't you just go ahead and do it? That's the one thing that kind of bothers me about this, is that you're going to have to make this change. You're going to have to do it later, then just do it. There's nothing special about being in season, I think, when your team is already crappy. Because if we go into this offseason at 5-7, which is the same record we have in 2023, there's not going to be much of an offseason. There's not going to be Kool-Aid drinking because people will be sick to death of it. And a lot of that stuff is fun in how we prepare for the next season. And it convinces us to spend money on our football team. And if you don't want to do that, and if you don't, I don't know, give the people any reason to have faith in the process, then I don't know what the off season is going to look like. And it feels terrible. And I know a lot of you can just stop watching Nebraska football and stop paying attention to it. And that's pretty easy. We still have to report on this crap. And it's not fun when there's so much apathy and malaise. I appreciate your comments. And thank you so much for supporting the channel. Go Big Red.